Hello, my name is Natalie and welcome to my channel Bargello-a-GoGo. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make an Easter inspired Bargello embroidered pot holder. So the full list of materials are noted on my blog on my website, and I've put a link in the description below for you to have a look at that. But what you're going to need material wise to make this Easter egg pot holder, Bargello pot holder, you're going to need a total of 10 skeins of Appleton's wool, and you're going to need 2 of each shade, so 2 of the shade 841, 2 of the 942, 2 of the 442, 2 of the 481, 2 of the 553. You're also going to need a sheet of 10 count plastic canvas, and by that I mean there's 10 squares on this to the inch. So you're going to need a sheet of that as well. So you're also going to need a size 18 tapestry needle, and that's really good for this type of wool and also for going through the plastic canvas. You're going to need some embroidery scissors, and the final things you'll need is an ink pen and some paper scissors as well, and this is for marking and cutting out the plastic canvas. And one last thing you might find helpful is a bulldog clip. I mentioned that later in the video. So the first thing we do is we need to prep this plastic canvas to make it the right size to be able to make this pot holder here. So what we need to do is, I would use your tapestry needle. You're going to count across 131 squares along here. So you're going to do just 1, 2, 3, 4. You're just going to mark off just here, just with an ink pen that shows that you can just mark that with. You might find actually the easiest thing to do is just mark your canvas 2 squares from the end on the bottom here. So 1, 2, and just pop a line there. And then all you're going to do is on the right side of this line, you're just going to use your paper scissors and you're just going to cut straight across this plastic canvas here, just across that line. So if you can see where I'm cutting from where that ink mark was there. And so you're just going to cut right to the top of the plastic canvas there. So now you have the correct width you need. The next thing we need to do is, obviously this is slightly too long for the height. So we need to mark up a total of 65 squares, and we're just going to count along these squares here. Along this part here, along here, there'll be a total of 65 squares. And then, like I said, we just get the paper scissors and you just cut along there. So we've now got the right shape and size of canvas that we need to be able to complete this pot holder. So on the blog on my website there's actually a close-up chart I've included that shows this pattern that's going to make this design here. It's a close-up chart just to show you how each stitch or part of these are formed. And the first shape we're going to start with is 841. So you're just going to cut an arm's length of that shade. It's going to thread your needle. So first of all we're going to be sewing these little cream stitches here. That's this shade. And on the pattern chart you can see they go over a total of 3 squares, 1, 2, 3. So you're going to be sewing them over 3 squares on this. So we're going to be starting 1 square in and 4 squares up. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're putting your needle into that 4th square, 2nd row in. And what you're going to do is just pull your needle through. And what you need to do is just hold the back of the thread like I'm doing here. And what you're going to do is you're going to be sewing around that thread to fasten it at the back. So you count up 2 squares, so 1, 2, like that. You're just going to pop your needle back through. And you would have made your first stitch as per this pattern chart here. So you're going to do another one across now, keeping hold of the thread on the back still, because you don't want to pull that out and you want to secure it as you sew. So you're going to make another one the same, matching what you've just made next door to it in the next squares across. Now what we want to do is a whole sequence of those all the way across your canvas. So what you're going to do is you're going to repeat that stitch as on this cream part here, and you're going to miss 4 squares and then do the next one. You're going to miss 4 squares and do the next one, because then we're going to fill in with this other colour and shade and pattern here. So you're going to, you've already done the 2 there. You're going to count across foot 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to miss those 4 squares and you're going to go into the 5th one next door. So again, you're just going to count up 2 squares for your straight Bargello stitch. And at the same time, you're just weaving in this end here. So just keep your finger on your finger on that for the moment at the back. And you're going to do the same again. So you do another 2. And then you count across 5 squares again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll have a gap there of 4 squares, which is where the other pattern's going to go. And then you just count up 2 again. And you do these in sets of 2, like you've done previously here. And you're just going to repeat that sequence all the way across until you get to 2 squares along here. You're going to have 2 squares of a gap, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute once this has been fully sewn. So you may find you run out of thread before you get to the end of where you're working to. And all you do, because you're just pulling an arm's length worth of thread for these stitches, because you don't want the tapestry wool to get really thin if it's too long or tangled. So an arm's length is about the right sort of length. Now I do have other videos where I show you how to do the Bargello stitches and how to start and finish your stitches as well, that you might want to look at. But just to give you a quick overview, so what you would then do is just pop through your thread and snip off the excess. And then you just get another length of the thread and you just weave that into the back, about a needle's length. Not pulling too tightly, otherwise you'll pull it straight back out. You just want it to just sit there under the stitches. And then again, you're just going to count along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the same row, and pop your needle back through and do your twin stitches again. So when you get to the end, you just do one final pair along here, and you'll then have 2 squares left over at the end here, and then, like I said at the beginning, you'll have 1 square there. That's for when we actually make the join and join the pot holder into the round. You need those extra blank squares where you don't do any stitching at this stage. So you just, again, you're going to weave in your loose end just to secure that thread, and then we're ready to start the next part of the pattern. So the next part of the pattern we'll be doing is this pink stitch along the bottom here, and that has 2 different size stitches and 4 in total. So you have a shorter stitch here which goes over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares, and then a slightly longer stitch here which goes over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares, and again another 7 square one, and then a 5 stitch one. And then what you'll find in between is you'll have these cream stitches when you're repeating the pattern across the row, as you can see here. So what you're going to do is get your pink thread, so the 942 shade, and again you're going to cut an arm's length of that and join it to your, or thread it to your tapestry needle. Again, I have a video tutorial showing you how to thread the tapestry needle if you'd like to have a look at that on my YouTube channel. So to make a start on this one here, we're going to again just thread through all the pre-work stitches there. You don't need to tie knots in Bargello embroidery because it can make the back of the work really bulky because it's quite thick tapestry wool. So we don't tend to do that on here. So and the yarn or the wool, because of how it's made and plied, it does tend to just stay within the work. So it's absolutely fine just to do it that way. So what we're going to do now, if you can see on the pattern here, the pink stitch is worked 1 square down from where the cream stitches are worked on that initial length. So you're just going to pop your needle 1 square down from where the previous stitches were worked, and then you're going to pop up 1 square above where these are worked. You can see on the pattern chart here it's 1 square above, and you're just going to pull that through, and that's your next stitch. And now you're going to do the same what you just did there to create another longer stitch by going one square down and then 1 square up here as well. So you're going to go 1 up like that, and then back down to the square next door to that, and then back up again. So again you've got 2 matching like how you've got here, and then you're going to do a shorter stitch again there. So instead of going across next door like that, you're going to go 1 up again so it matches on that side, and just pop your needle back through, and that's one of the pattern parts complete like that there that you've just now done. And then what you're going to do next is just skip over from this cream shade, and you're just going to replicate this along the whole row. So you're going to start with the smaller pink stitch, and you're going to count up 4 squares, 5 in total with the one underneath, and then you're going to go 1 down and then 1 back up and then one down, one back up, so you're just following that again, and you're just going to repeat that across the whole of the row until you get to this part here. So you're just going to stop at them final cream stitches, which I'll show you. I'm just going to work through that now. So once you get to the final one, you just put the final stitches in as per the pattern. Like that. And then you just again weave in and you fasten off. So the first row of your pot holder is now complete. So on the next part we're going to use the cream shade again, the 841 here. We're going to be doing the next row of these stitches here in the cream. So again, you just need to cut a length of your tapestry wool and attach it to your needle. So again, we're just going to thread through the back of the work to secure the stitches. And now this, we're going to go, so it's always going to be the same length stitch as these ones here, so it's always going to be over 3 squares in total. So what we now do is we start here at the top here of this pink stitch. So you're just going to pull your needle through and you share the square, so you pull it back through where that previous stitch was, so you don't get any gaps in the work. And then you're just going to count up 2 squares, 1, 2, and you're going to do that twice, like in multiples of 2, like you did here. And then you're just going to go across to the next one, and again into the same square where that last stitch finished. So it's always inside these squares here. And again, you're just going to count 2 squares up. So it worked over a total of 3. And you're just going to do a multiple of 2 there. And you're just carrying the thread at the back of the work here. And then again, you go across to the next one and you do the same. And you're just going to repeat that on top of every of these pink patterns in the middle of them, like here, right till you get to the last one here. So next you're going to be using shade 442, which is the orange shade. And as you can see, I'm just starting on the next row here, next to the cream stitches. The first few stitches I'm doing here, they are what's known as compensation stitches, where they're not quite the full pattern as per the pink ones in the row below. And you just start those at the beginning. You'll then continue sewing in the pattern with the orange shade along the row. And please refer to the pattern chart on my blog if you need to see where you sew these orange stitches. And then when you get to the last few stitches here, you're just going to complete until the end of where this cream stitch is here. So you just do the same size stitch, the smaller stitch there, just along here, and then the 2 bigger stitches from that pattern. So you can see that's all complete there. So you're now going to be using the cream shade again, and like we did the pattern heads here, of the pink ones, we're going to do the same for the orange. Again, over a total of 3 squares, counting up 2 squares. So you're just going to count up 2, at the beginning here, and then you're going to go across and do it on the 2 larger stitches in those squares as well. And you're just going to repeat that all across these until the end over here. And then weave in your loose end. So the next shade we'll be joining in, as per the pattern chart, is this blue shade, which is 481. And as you can see here on the pot holder, it's the next one to be joined. So what we do is we just go in that stitch there to the orange one. We just count up 4 stitches again. And then we go 1 down in the next row. And then 1 up, so you're just doing the same pattern as you've done for the previous 2 rows, but you're just using this blue shade instead of the orange or the pink. And again, you just go across. It's quite a straightforward pattern once you get into the rhythm of it, and you just go straight across like this. And again, you're just going to repeat this across until the end. And then when you get to the end, you just do 1 more of that final stitch pattern in between those cream stitches there. And then you finish that off too. And you can now start to see how the pattern's coming along and building up there. So we're now using the cream shade 841 again of the Appleton's wool. And again, for this one, you're just going to do that same stitch you've done previously, and again with the placement of them, you are just going to put them above the 2 larger stitches of the pattern, like I'm doing here. Again, you just follow that all the way across. So you're just going to continue like in that sequence there, all the way across to the end and the last blue pattern here. So you've got another sequence of those cream stitches there. So the next shade we're going to be using is 553, which is the final sequence of this pattern here. So you're going to, again, you're going to do the same as what you did for this orange shade. So you're just going to join in your thread, and then you're going to count up 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to do that long stitch there. And then you're going to do another of those like you did in the orange shade here. And then you're going to do a slightly smaller stitch where it's 1 square down. Like that one. And then you're going to miss the 2 cream square stitches there, and then you're going to go straight after that next door to them, and you're going to do the same to form this pattern again like in the orange. You're just going to copy what you've done on the orange there. So you're just going to duplicate that the whole way across, like the orange placement here. You're going to do it all the way across to the yellow until you get here, and you do the same as for the orange but in the yellow shade. So I'm just finishing the final part of this pattern row now. Again, just keeping in sequence with everything else. So as you can see, I've now got the 4 pattern rows complete from the beginning. So you're going to repeat these 4 pattern rows two more times where you end with the yellow, and then you're going to do 1 more row of the pink, 1 more row of the orange, and 1 more row of the blue, which will take you to 1 square just below the top, like you've got the 1 square that's free here, which will allow for your slip stitching later on. So once you've completed the full pattern, you'll find that you'll have on the left hand side 1 empty row of squares on the canvas, and you'll also have 2 empty rows of squares on the canvas on the right hand side here, and that will be for when we join the pot holder. So you also find you'll have gaps up the top and bottom here. So what we now need to do is add compensation stitches, and by that I mean they're not quite the same full size as these ones have been for the pattern. They're going to be slightly smaller, and how we're going to fill those in, we're going to use this yellow shade, the Appleton's Wool 553, because if you notice here, under the pink is yellow and above the blue is also the yellow shade. So along these lines here, it would make sense to add the yellow just to keep the Bargello pattern nice and even and correct with these shades in the right order. So I've taken an arm's length of the yellow shade thread and I've attached it to my needle, the tapestry needle we use, and I'm just going to start at the bottom, and I'm just going to thread like we've done for the rest. I'm just going to thread through that yellow to join in the back. And what I'm going to do is do these compensation stitches. So I'm starting 1 square up and 1 square in. So you're going to keep this bottom row completely empty, and we're just going to match in the stitches here. So I'm just going to pop my needle through there, like so, and then I'm going to go to the square next door, and they're just filling in stitches. I'm just filling in these gaps along here, as you can see here. Then I've got 1 more little square there, and I'm just going to pop again another little straight stitch in there. So they're not quite the full length that these ones were, hence why they're called the compensation stitches. And then I'm just going to thread that under there, under the pink ones, just to keep it nice and tidy on the back, like that. And then I'm just going to go to the one next door again where there's a gap, again making sure it's one row up. And again I'm just going to fill those in with these straight stitches, making sure that I share the square with whatever stitches above. So I just pop my needle back in there and pull that through. So you'll see you're getting this row of yellow stitches now. So on my blog, I've sent a link, as I mentioned earlier, in the description below to my website. I've got a picture of this completed hole, so you can look at the photo and see just how these stitches are done. And you're literally just going to now go across the rest of the row until you get to this end here. Been filled. So you'll now see that the bottom here has now been filled in with this yellow shade all the way across along there, and you've just got this empty row of squares at the bottom here, and as I said before, the two at the right hand side and one at the left. So what you're next going to do, again using this yellow shade of Appleton's wool, you're just going to do exactly the same as what you did for the bottom, for the top here. So again, you're just going to cut an arm's length of the yellow thread and attach it to your needle, or thread your needle. And you're just going to start at this end here and just weave it in. And then again, you're just going to fill up these squares here, but not the very top one. You're going to leave that one empty because we'll be whip stitching the edging later, so we need that empty square there. So you're just going to again just fill these gaps so they're at the same level of where the blue ones stitches are here. You're just going to go across like you did for the one on the bottom, and then you're just going to thread under the blue stitches there, turn that back round, and then continue doing these stitches along. So you're just going to repeat that all the way across to the last cream stitch here, the same as what you've done at the bottom here. So this is how the top will look once you've sewn all those yellow stitches there. And this is how the panel will look once it's fully completed and sewn. So the next step will be to join the actual pot holder, which I'm going to show you next. I'm going to join the sides of this pot holder using this yellow thread here. What I've done here is I've got a crocodile clip just to aid me in keeping this together whilst I'm sewing, as you can see here. So I can just get started without, because it's plastic canvas, it has a tendency to sort of want to pin back straight, so it just helps hold it whilst I'm doing the sewing. So what I've done is I've just weaved in some thread. I'm using the yellow thread here. Again, that's, you can choose any colour you want, but I'm just using the yellow to match my join here. And you're going to use the single square over the double squares. And what I've done is I've just pulled the needle through one, two across, but one down where there's another stitch already in there. So I've just pulled that out the way, and I'm just going to pop this over here. So what you want is this square here matching under this second row here. You can see into that stitch there, into that stitch there. And I'm going to pull that through, not too tight because you don't want to pull the thread back out. So you've got one small stitch there, and then you're going to go back through this canvas here in that first square of the hole, 3 down now, and you're going to go into the next square here like this, and you're just going to again pull that through. I'm just keeping those tight. So what you're doing is you're making a straight stitch join along here. So again, you go down to the next square there, and you're just moving those little Bargello stitches out the way because you're doing it where the previous Bargello stitches were worked. So you're just going into that little square there. And again, you're just going to pull that. And the more of them you do, it will start to stay more. And make sure they're all quite tight as well. So if you find the one before isn't as tight, you just pull that through. And then what you find, you're going to get a joint at the back I'll do a few more stitches and you'll see what I mean. So you're just going back round. So we're going back through, making sure you catch the end square underneath here. So you're popping your needle back through that square there that's empty, and then into that one. And then again you're pulling it there and then back through into the next stitch there. So you just want to keep a nice tight tension as you sew down the pot. So you just continue to pull that through and then go into the next stitch. And again, you're just making sure here you're catching the stitches as you go along. So you're securing that end as well. So you're literally going through this hole here and then into, you just move the little Bargello stitch previously worked out the way just so you can go underneath. And the reason we do it into that stitch and not in this square here is it just gives it a nice neat join without any gaps of seeing the plastic canvas through it. So if it was to be sewn here, you'd have this little line here of plastic canvas showing. So I just think it gives it a little nicer, neater edge by doing it this way. And you're just going to continue doing that the whole way down until the end here. So when you come to the end, you're just going to work again just to that last part here before the empty squares. You're not going to sew into those ones, and you're just going to just pull that last stitch through, and then you're just going to weave in the thread just through the join here at the back. So you're just going to literally weave that in there, just with your needle, and you're going to just pull that thread through and then snip off the excess. And then just snip off the excess there. So then you'll have your join down the side. So the next thing you're going to need to do is add whip stitch into the top and the bottom around the pot holder. So first of all, what you do is you just weave in your threads here. I'm just starting at the top of the pot here, the pot holder here, and you're just going to initially start with a stitch where it's overlapped in here, like so. If you've got the bit underneath that you've put your needle through, you can see there. And then you're popping it through there as well. And you're literally just going to wrap over the stitches as you pop it back into each top stitch here. So again, we don't have the gap, so you're going to, the gap of plastic canvas if you just went into that top part, so you're going to go into each already worked square here with another stitch. So you're just going to, and they're just going to whip over around here. So you're just going to pull your needle through and back under, and then you go to the next square along that's already got the work stitch in it, and again you just pull that through and then back under, and you pull that through, and you just continue to do that until you work all the way round back to the beginning here. So you'll most likely find that you'll run out of thread before you get all the way round the pot. So all you do if that happens is you just thread that needle just through some stitches on the inside, like you do for finishing off your threads in Bargello embroidery, and you just snip that off. You just get some more of your thread, you just re-thread your needle, and you just go back to where you started or where you last finished your thread, and again you just weave through your needle just through some of the stitches in the back. You just gently pull that through because you don't want to pull the thread back out, and then you just go back next door to the next one that hasn't been worked, and you just pull your needle through, and then you just continue whip stitching along as you did previously. And then you'll find there isn't a join that you can see, and it will look the same as you go round. So when you get back to where the canvas joins, you're just going to go through those last couple of stitches, and then you're going to do one final stitch back in where you originally started. And the reason you do a double stitch there is just to try and give nice coverage of the join of the plastic canvas so it's not showing through. And then all you're going to do is just pop your needle back through the under joint of the whip stitching, as you can see there. And then you're just going to pull your needle through. And then you can just fluff up the stitches a bit if you need to with your nail. And fasten off. And that's one half of your whip stitch done on the pot holder. And now you just repeat that process for the bottom part as well. And now your Bargello Easter pot holder is complete. If you'd like to see more videos where I show you Bargello embroidery video tutorials, please feel free to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the link below. And once again, thanks for watching.